The fact that I was 19 years old, I was this kid who was at UC Santa Cruz. I had just gone through a very tumultuous period in my own life. I had dropped out of university and actually came close to successfully suiciding. And out of that experience, which was actually, in retrospect, a very positive or very important experience, I came back to Santa Cruz. I met Gregory Bateson the first day back. I met John Grinder, who was teaching a course called The Political Economy of the United States, whereby he was...
that a long course?
Well, it was long enough for him to radically espouse the overthrow of the United States government by whatever means necessary. So maybe a different developmental phase of John's life.
So it didn't quite work, of course.
Not yet. Yeah. And Grinder and Bandler had just gotten together and had written this book, Structure Magic. And Gregory Bateson, who lived on the same property as Bandler and Grinder, sent them out to Erickson. Said, if you guys really want to know about patterns of communication, he's the man. So when they came back, it just really touched me in this unforgettable way, that what this guy was up to, it reached in it and just opened something inside of me that was like a fire got lit. And as I was mentioning earlier, I had this feeling that this is why I'm here. And so I got to go out about 2 months later when John and Richard returned, and that was the beginning of a period of over 5 years. And I'd usually go out on quarter breaks because I was in universities during that whole time. I was in undergraduate at Santa Cruz and I did 6 years of graduate study at Stanford. So of my quarter breaks, I would go out and spend anywhere from 2 to 3 to 10 days with him.
At a time?
At a time, right. And it was a wonderful experience. I mean, there's certainly not a week that goes by without me being grateful for something that I learned there. Well, actually, I did this process of detransidentification, which is something that we were really just interested in all sorts of interesting far-out experiences and trying to experience and understand all the range of possibilities in hypnosis. And I think it was Grinder who came across this series of articles in some of the hypnosis journals about subjects learning to go into deep trance and become a famous artist in a deep trance like Rembrandt, and then showing that their artistic capacity was significantly improved by doing that. And so we thought, that's interesting. And as a 19-year-old, I was interested in getting out of myself in every way possible. So we decided to do the experiment using me as a subject and me doing a deep trance identification with Erickson. And it was a really very, very profound experience. In terms of learning hypnosis, the two things that happened when I went into trance and tapped into Erickson, or at least whatever my unconscious understanding was that when I opened my eyes, everything was quiet. And it was a very different experience than I had assumed that Erickson, because you read all these incredibly clever strategies, that his mind must have been buzzing a mile a minute with all sorts of manipulation. But what I experienced in that was everything was quiet. And then secondly, when I looked around, everybody was already in a trance. And that has been one of the most important experiences, that it wasn't that I had to put them into trance.
They were there.
They were already there. Their unconscious was already there. And so it was a great relief to realize that hypnosis is not something you do to people, but that you attune to something that's there and you're looking to just draw it out and bring their attention to it.
Erickson, I think you said yesterday, would have been one of your sponsors in life. if there was sort of one or two real great nuggets of advice, support, or way he impacted your life, I'm sure he's impacted your life in many ways, what really stands out for you from the Erikson legacy?
You know, there's about 15 years ago, Jeff Zeig and Steve Langton, two other major students, we had lunch with Ernie Rossi, another major student, and Ernie was writing this keynote address, and he asked us each to write down what we considered the three most important principles or ideas in Erikson's legacy. And all three of us wrote down utilization, and I can't remember what Jeff and Steve wrote down, but the number one thing that I wrote down was life is to be enjoyed. And you know, it's really a message that I got from him on such a deep level. And by that, I don't think he meant that you're just telling jokes all day and living it at a surface level, but the sense that we've got this little opportunity, and the meter's running, and we could waste it all worrying or trying to be something we're not, and then at the end of our life we look back and realized, what was the point? So I knew him when he was an old man. He had suffered tremendously. He was in absolute pain every day. He usually had to do 4 or 5 hours of hypnotic pain control, and yet this was a guy who, in a very deep, real way, enjoyed life. For example, one afternoon I used to stay in his office guest house, which was right next to his house. It was around dinner time, and I was coming in through the backyard to bring Mrs. Erikson something. And Erikson, who, as I said, enjoyed the color purple because the only color he could see, was sitting in the kitchen with a purple athletic jumpsuit, and he was chopping vegetables for the family dinner. And he looked up and he said, in his sort of typical way, with this little glimmer in his eye, I'm doing my workout. And I looked quizzically, as I often did, and I recognized that in his frail state, this was the most workout that he could do. Yeah. But he was totally into it, and then he looked with this big smile and he said, I always enjoy discovering what I can do and take great satisfaction in that. Joseph Campbell, as many people know, was this American mythologist, died about 5 years ago. And in 1949, I believe it was, came out with this book, Hero with a Thousand Faces, where he looked at all these different mythologies and tales from many, many different cultures, and found that they shared there was this common pattern that occurred in virtually every culture in storytelling, in ritual and drama, which was the notion of somebody going on this hero's journey. And the hero's journey, in the easiest version, something that you're kind of starting in paradise, you're starting in the garden, and then something happens and you get kicked out, and you have to begin a process of healing yourself, finding yourself, going on your own way for a long period of time, 40 years in the desert, or its mythological equivalent, and through that beginning to create an experience and cross these thresholds that allow you to achieve something in your consciousness that's never been achieved before. That is both healing for yourself, but equally importantly, a healing gift that you then return to your community and are able to share with them. So it's a beautiful metaphor or map for talking about how you can think about your own life in terms of really generating the best quality life that's fulfilling for you and helpful to others. Erikson is a classic example of a hero's journey.